Cool.
How you doing? It's nice to see you again.
Life is good here in Southern California on a Tuesday afternoon. Did my volleyball this morning, and now we're waiting for the big storm to hit. For those of you who don't know Los Angeles very well, we have the most insane situation here. When storm watch happens, all the networks go crazy here, and we get ready for that half inch of rain.
That's amazing.
So we're officially on storm watch tonight,
Speaking of California, dude, I saw your bike ride by California Camera Obscura. I've passed that 1,000 times in my life, but I never even realized what it meant to me. That point on Santa Monica and just how cool it is. Just that.
Totally.
Well, has that been there forever?
It has, and I've never even been inside of it, but I posted images of that to not only my own world, but also a mid-century modern page, Facebook page here in Los Angeles. And I got just a crap load of responses to that. And all these mid-century modern people who design folks who just go crazy about that and were telling their stories about it.
Yeah. What is that? I never knew what it is in that building.
What is it? It's on Santa Monica Beach.
Yeah.
It's a art gallery that also has a camera obscura. In other words, it has like a pinhole on the side of the building that supposedly brings in light and transmits the live image, the real-time image you can see on a dark wall. And so that's what a camera obscura is, also known as a pinhole camera.
Okay, because I've been, by it 1,000 times since '88, since I moved to California, and just never knew. But it always just looks so cool, and that's just right before you hit the pier. It's such a nice place to take a bike ride or a walk on that big grass place, and it just feels like California. It's funny because it made me. I was scrolling through your pictures, and I feel so California. Like the pictures, my first image in the East Coast of California that you captured was Chips. I was thinking like Chips really made me go, that's what, and even looking on your page, you had like some Bruce Jenner interviewing Gabe Kaplan, and that was my earliest California. I mean, before I got into bands and stuff, that 70s TV.
And I have, it's really interesting to see how much we affect, or many say pollute the rest of the world. I have family in France. And so every time I go back to France, first of all, anywhere I walk around in France, I stick out because Americans, we have a look, but I have the Southern California look. And all the time I get the same thing in French, oh, vous êtes de Californie? Yeah, I'm from California. Oh, and then they all talk about, alert à Malibu. Alert à Malibu is the French term for Baywatch.
Oh my gosh.
And it's funny because and they know. It's funny, we get a lot of visitors here every year, usually the 1 month occupancy of some family member. And they always want to, Don, can we go to the hood? They want to see where rap videos are made, or they want to see famous high school, or here just down the road from us we have the Melrose Place house and things like that. People want to see that. They just know us.
Yeah, it is. Well, I got to, obviously live there for a long time. I've lived there in California more than I haven't. But to me, before up to 18, just seeing it on Chips and seeing Leif Garrett just singing those motorcycle chases. And even I was watching, what's the James Garner show? It just had
Rockford Files.
Yeah, he's got Gazaris and just all the Hollywood freeway signs. That was my introduction, man.
Exactly.
And I was looking at some pictures you had of, we know the famous bands, but I was looking at Secret City. What was the other band? And the Zippers.
Yes.
These bands that never really became huge, and they were backstage at the Starwood. And to me, it's like, that was a look. That was just such a cool look. What do you think that was before we get to the bands that obviously established the look?
It's interesting because some fresh news for you. We had the same discussion over the last 2 weeks. Starting about a month ago, Voice from the Past decided to reconnect with a handful of us. Hadn't seen each other in quite a long time, and that was Nikki Sixx.
Oh, wow.
So Nikki Sixx, I've had 2.5 hours of phone conversations with him in the last 3 weeks. And that exact point came up.
Really?
And basically came up about how in the heyday of the Starwood and the whiskey, the whole Sunset Strip scene, one of the things that we had back then that I think you've never seen anywhere else, nor I would hope it would repeat again, but was that you had the glam, you had the heavy metal, you had the rock, the new wave, the punk, and they would all support each other. And a lot of
Yeah.
these bands like Motley Crue and his predecessor band London,
Yeah.
I mean, London had stylish leanings towards their inspiration was originally groups like Sweet
Right.
and a little bit of Tommy Bolin, T-Rex, and then of course, the godfather of it all, Alice Cooper. And they all used to try to, let's do something big and grand and crazy. But then on off nights, you could see the Londons, the Motley Crues all hanging out at the Starwood to go see, Blondie or Devo or something like that. And that was really, really precious. So it was really, really, cross supportive here in Los Angeles. And it was unbelievable. Here I was, finishing an engineering degree, and which is not easy. And
Yeah.
but yet at nights, going out and being a part of the Starwood and whiskey scene and seeing and being in all of this, and it was just precious.
Yeah. Wow. Because I was looking, it totally makes sense that crossbreeding because I was looking at Crew and the Runaways, and I did know Kim Fowler. I did a lot of time with Kim and Diane Diamond, and Crew kind of had that element. But then you look at a band like Armored Saint, and I know Crew didn't steal from Armored Saint, but the heavier, more chains, that Wasp, and Crew kind of had the Wasp Armored Saint, but at the same time, why they were cooler than Wasp and Armored Saint is they also had that Runaways element. So I feel like you're
Exactly.
probably right. He was fusing new wave and all of it, and you were there to capture it.
And the connection with Nikki Sixx, a lot of people, well, some people know and some people don't know, is that, in London, when he had that group, his girlfriend was, Laurie Bell of the Orchids. The Orchids was, for the most part, the follow-on to the Runaways. It was another Kim Fowler band. He went ahead and brought them together, got them their deal with MCA Records. MCA, who seemed to be more focused on their banner acts like Elton John and everything, I think quite didn't know what to do with the Orchids. Unfortunately, never did right by them. But that was his girlfriend. Nikki had then the connection to Kim Fowler. And, that whole, just cross-pollination happened.
Yeah. And Fowley as a kid, I ended up meeting him, and I mean Kim Fowley's called my mom and dad to get me in trouble when he basically got me on drugs, and he got me on drugs as a kid and called to tell you, hey man, your son, get down here on a teenage dog level. But he was on all these albums, but I feel like obviously you weren't out there. Like Kim was out there. I mean, Kim was like one step away from that Charles Manson mentality without killing people, but it was a type of guy. You know what I mean? That the mind just, and I saw a picture of you doing a photo shoot on a billboard with somebody climbing the billboard, not a photo shoot for a billboard. And it reminded me so much of something Kim would say to do. Hey, and at that time that was cool to do stuff like that, right?
Exactly. And that billboard shot, now I can open the door again. I had a barking dog.
Okay, yeah.
That billboard shot was, we had a local radio, back in the heyday, we had local radio station here, K-Rock, KROQ in Pasadena. And they were, new wave leaning. However, they were one of the radio stations that would play Motley Crue. They would play all these emerging bands. And so K-Rock had this, we used to have this, you drive a race course called Malibu Grand Prix here.
Oh, I remember You get the license. You got it. The license is more expensive than the race. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you go ahead and drive around these, race tracks on these really low cars that had a rotary engine on them. You went just fast enough to be adventurous and not too fast enough to kill yourself. And the K-Rock had a celebrity Malibu Grand Prix race day. A bunch of different local rock acts and everything came out. Like the Orchids, members of the Knack, things like that. And we had a wonderful time. I was out there as a photographer. I even got asked to race if I wanted. I'm like, no, thank you for the offer, but I really want.
They were fast, those cars, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here to take pictures. Afterwards, they threw an open bar event at a local bar in Pasadena. We all went there, drank a lot. And then I'm hanging out with Laurie McAllister of the Orchids. Laurie McAllister, by the way, was also the final bass player of the Runaways.
Oh wow! Okay.
Before they broke up, and then she went ahead and was the bass player for the Orchids. Her and I were chumming around, full of Long Island iced teas or Mai Tais, and I had my camera equipment, of course, and I said, "Let's go out and have some fun." So we went outside, and there was a big billboard, and it was her and I that climbed up on the billboard we're up there shooting, taking some pictures, having some fun, and just going crazy on the billboard. And she's hanging upside down, posing, and all kinds of stuff. And then suddenly, here comes this police car, and this policewoman gets out, and she goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I go, "Oh, we're taking pictures. I'm Don Adkins. We're talking." She goes, "I don't care who the hell you are. You get off that right now. I'm going to come over up there and arrest your ass."
Oh my God.
So Lori and I came down, and she goes, "Okay." She goes, "You better get out of here. I'm going to let you go. You get out of here, or next conversation we're having is I'm going to be taking you to jail."
My God. And there was kind of, because Kim did a photo shoot with us and Robert John, my old band, and there was kind of a move and go mentality at that time.
Right.
Like, you almost did something before, like, wait, it was almost a terrorist level of like, what's really going on here? Like nobody knows what's going, you throw everybody off. And by the time they start to discover, you're already out into the car to the next location.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was very, now that I look back, I didn't even realize that's what you had to kind of do to get those cool shots.
Exactly. And by the way, I still do that to this day. If I have, some shooting of a model or some art shooting or something like that, I'll go to places that, often there's some attractions here in LA. You go there and immediately start shooting. And because it's LA, and because the local authorities here are hot for getting usage fees.
Yeah.
Every city has it here. It's just part of the SoCal lifestyle. I'll go out there, start shooting, have reflectors and umbrella, and shooting, and all of a sudden, I know a few minutes later, the somebody will come and say, "Excuse me, what are you doing? You can't shoot professional shots here." And then I always have my canned response, and usually I get away with it, and then continue shooting. So.
And what's the canned response?
Oh, it's for my class. I'm a
amazing.
student at
That's amazing.
the Art Institute.
Oh my God. We just had my buddy Tommy runs the Viper Room, and we had Thomas Nichols from American Pie on, and he was going to he told Tommy he was doing a student film at the Viper.
Right.
And they show up with Mickey Rourke.
Wow.
And the film Adverse which is out, that is a good one. It works, man.
Yeah. The Viper Room, enjoy it while you can, because it's, due for the wrecking ball.
It's looking good. My buddy manages it. It doesn't look, so bad right now, Tom.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't look, I know there's a lot of rumors, but it looks okay for now.
Well, I thought it was part of a sale of the whole block, in that they're going to eventually condo and commercial space it.
It was sold, but it almost protects it more that it's sold, because no one would probably wreck it until I think, and I don't know, until they build a crazy hotel, which they might build around it. But to get those permits, some of those lots, remember that lot on Clark Street across from the Whiskey?
Yeah.
That for years just sat empty.
Yeah.
That lot, think of that. Once someone bought, it takes a lot to build in that part of, LA. It really does take a lot of, so who knows, but hopefully not. I was just watching the Plimsolls in Valley Girl. Did you remember that? They did that Plimsoll scene at the Central.
I remember Plimsolls were the lead singer of the group, David Pahoa, I think was his name. I remember one time being at a show with him at this short-lived venue here we had called the Arena, and him and his band were going in different directions at the end of the show, not creatively. Yeah. And I remember giving him a ride home that night, because he was one of the few that lived in Cerritos, like I did, out in the suburbs.
Wow. Speaking of Cerritos, so you had your studio in your parents' house in Cerritos.
Yeah, it's like, what do you do? Basically, I started, getting good at shooting a lot of live acts, started getting some notoriety, started getting a lot of professional jobs. And then I think it was Nikki who actually, it was actually my first professional shoot, was Nikki and the newly formed Motley Crue saying, "Hey, we need some studio shots. Can we shoot in your studio?" I'm like, I don't have a studio, but real quickly on my feet, I go, my house in Cerritos, we have a 2-story high white wall. Yeah, we can turn that into a studio space. So I immediately went out and bought 5 of these giant hot lights. They're called Smith Victors, 500-watt lights. I bought 5 of those. Hooked it up in the living room, cleared all the furniture out, and that was the first time we had Motley Crue over. And that kind of started the whole thing about shooting, a lot of studio shots and everything. And I went hot lights rather than strobe systems just because I had just taken a studio class using strobes, and it's great. It's back in the days of film, of course. You shoot, and then you get the shots back, and after you get the shots back, you go, "Oops, shine on the forehead that
Yeah.
you didn't see." So I said, I'm just going to go hot lights so I can always see exactly what's going to come out on the lens.
Oh, that makes sense. Because all you had then, did you do Polaroids with them? Because I remember
No,
no Polaroids.
no Polaroids.
Did you have a nervousness to yourself of like taking shots and just not, you got to get them developed and see what comes out?
No, because I was really anal about it. I basically got down to a recipe of, hey, if I'm shooting with this many lights, it's always, at 400 speed, it's always 125th of a second at f5.6, and you vary from that accordingly. And that's kind of what I did. And the other side of me, unlike any other photographer that I know of, I'm also an engineer by background too. So it's always the geeky engineer part comes into play.
Wow. Do you remember who was home when you shot Motley Crue in your living room?
It was myself and the guys. I think basically,
Mom was out. Mom was out. Mom
yeah,
wasn't
my
home.
parents were working,
Okay.
so they were off at work during the day. I think it was either the first or second shoot. My mom had come home early from work, and she offers Tommy Lee something to drink out of the fridge. And this is back in the days when the guys were just really, doing everything they could to survive, including food. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
Tommy going over the fridge and loading up nicely.
Man, that's so cool. And then you went, I got this picture. I love this. This was an original from
Of
you.
course.
Wow.
Yes.
You taking Motley Crue to the Cerritos Mall to
Yes.
visit your girlfriend at Spencer's. This is
Exactly.
my favorite. I mean, the Florsheim shoes in the back. This
Yes.
is my favorite rock picture ever. And you had another police encounter this day too.
Yeah, we were at. Yeah, this was after doing shooting number one at the house, and after that, I'm like, my girlfriend at the time was working, and I said, guys, let's just don't end it here. You want to go? Let's go do something out in public. And they're like, oh, what do you have in mind? And Tommy, had his big van, and so I said, oh, let's just go down the street to the mall. Let's do some mall shots. So sure enough, we walked. We drove down the Cerritos Mall, which was about 5 minutes away from where I lived. Went in there. The guys, just the way they are, were walking around the mall, taking shots. And I still remember, a couple of minutes into it, we're walking along and I'm shooting them, and some girl comes up to Vince, going, "You Rod Stewart, you Rod Stewart. I know you Rod Stewart." He goes, "No, no, no." He goes, "Oh, all that stuff." They were all excited to see
Yeah,
them. And
yeah.
then we went ahead and we got the shot like the one you just showed me, them sitting around. And just as we were sitting there taking pictures, here comes mall security.
Love it.
And so security woman and a guy, they come up and like, "Okay, what are you doing here? You can't be shooting here in the mall." And I said, "Oh, this is a really big group."
And they weren't big then, right?
They were emerging, but yeah, they weren't
Not big,
dominant.
not yeah, not
No.
yeah.
So anyways, I went ahead and I said, "Oh, this is a big group, Motley Crue. We're just here, have some good times here and shooting." And then Vince, I remember the security guard, she seemed to have an eye towards Vince.
You show me some photos of him charming her.
Yeah, exactly. And she starts talking to him. He's smooth talking to her. And then pretty soon after that, she's like, "Oh, can I get in a picture with you guys?" And so I'm photographing security guard in the group. And then we were like kind of left to our own. She said, "Yeah, just don't raise too much commotion. Go ahead and continue shooting." And then I took the guys over to Spencer Gifts and surprised the hell out of my girlfriend and shot some shots of the guys in the gift store.
So Spencer's was such a cool store too.
It
Remember?
was back
And they had
then.
that adult section you couldn't go in until you were old
Exactly.
enough. Yeah. Wow, that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
What was your headspace like taking those pictures at that time of your life? Where were you at in your head?
For photographically and then from a music standpoint, I knew this was going to be a big thing, and I was happy to be a part of all this. I mean, I was friends with Nikki. We had established a relationship. I first met him, through Lori Bell of the Orchids. She kept telling me, "You got to see my boyfriend's band, London. They're incredible."
Yeah.
And so, sure enough, one of the next Starwood shows, she invited me over. Got on the list, went upstairs, met Nikki. The very first time I met him, that's one of the images I've posted online of him and I standing there together, him in his Londonish look, and me wearing a kimono because that seemed kind of 70s cool at the time, or
Yeah,
80s
yeah.
cool. And, I had the long hair and everything before I chopped it off for the corporate world. And, became friends. Started going to every London show, hanging out with the group backstage, after show, everything. And then, when the whole Motley Crue thing happened, he's like, "Hey, we need some photos." And his financier, who was Alan Kaufman.
I remember reading about that. Yeah.
Yeah, Alan Kaufman went ahead and he was paying for everything, put up a lot of money in the beginning to help them get established. And so he went ahead and paid for the photo sessions. And I said, sure. And that's, like I said, I invented this. Okay, I'm going to have a studio space. We came over and did the shots. And absolutely wonderful. And one thing I did that was really smart that I continue to do this day on all professional shoots, studio shoots that I would do. There's different flavors of photographers.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Anybody who's ever gone through a wedding photographer, that's the first start of the expensive process, and then they hold on to all the original stuff, and you have to come back to them forever at high prices.
Right.
And my niche was, hey, I shoot you, you take the negatives, you take everything. They're yours. You're paying for a service. But I would always capture with a second or third camera images for myself.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's why I have so many great negatives and slides of these guys. And so went ahead and did the shooting. Shots came out incredible. They took their original negatives. I had mine. And, we started, that's what's served as the basis for all the original posters that started making their way around town, plastering them all over Hollywood. If you go back here to the very first press kit. No, let's see. First of all, by the way, here's the very first 2 press kits ever from the group.
Oh my gosh.
And I know these are worth $1 zillion now.
Yeah.
But basically, we wound up, shooting stuff that became the basis for the posters that were plastered, all over Hollywood. And and it was images like this that just made the rounds everywhere.
Yeah, that's so cool. That photo shoot, that was with the blue background, kind of like, right?
Yeah, that was the blue background. And then here it is. The very first poster, of course, was this.
Then it got a lot less colorful, right?
Yeah, from the very first photo
my
session.
God.
The first poster.
Wow. And was that used for Stick to Your Guns and Toast to the Town?
Yes.
That's the same photo shoot? Wow.
It's the same photo shoot, yeah.
Now, I think that, wow, that's incredible, man. Was Eddie Nash ever floating around the Starwood when you realized what a gangster?
I never saw him. I never saw him. The voice and face of the Starwood that I got to see was David Forrest, who was the general manager, or seemed to be the general manager of the place, and handled all the bookings. And he was the one who took an interest in Nikki and Motley Crue, and actually even felt sorry for them. Actually, starting with London. He became their best ally and would give them the coveted Friday and Saturday shows at the Starwood. And seeing how struggling to get by the guys were, he would even have them do stuff at the Starwood, like, okay, hey, we need this thing built. We need this thing cleaned up. And the guys would come in and work for him for, an hourly wage.
Oh, wow. And those guys were very important. Like, you even say Kaufman and Kaufman. I'm sure Crew hates them now, but Kim taught me something. Was like, his deal with the band was so vicious, if you wanted to sign it, because he did everything, but at least it was defined, because he said, like, with Kaufman, when you don't define it, that's when the real trouble and the hatred comes in, because bands needed investors back then. An investor was a big part, of the band. And Kim said, well, if you make, he was so honest with me, he goes, if you make $2 million and you have to give me $1 million, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. And quite honestly, what I remember of the terms and conditions, I don't think was that onerous, because I remember it being along the lines of,
with which one? With who? With Kaufman?
Alan Kaufman. I remember it being 20% of the gross he would take from helping, being an investor in the beginning. And in the big picture, I guess that's high just for a pure management deal, but it didn't seem that onerous to me. There are examples like Coldplay, for example.
Right.
Coldplay, they were so heavily promoted and by CBS Records and their initial investors and everything, that Coldplay owns the members of the group own 30% of themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's par for the course. It costs a lot for the machine to work.
Yeah. But even someone like Kim, you think of the Runaways, Joan Jett, he named them. I can hear those names coming. You're
Right.
Sherry Curry. You will be Joan Jett.
Right.
Hello, Daddy. Hello. Wrote Cherry Bombs. I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
part of it. You know,
Exactly.
that's a big part of, like, they might not have those careers if it wasn't for Kim's initial, you know, let's do this. Because I know when he worked with me, he taught me everything. And in my life that I apply to my DJ services, to everything. It was just so huge.
Exactly.
I was going to say the Stick to Your Guns Toast of the Town actual 45 that I've read about since I was a kid growing up is pretty, the only thing you can equate it to is Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster.
Right.
Because everybody, that's not it, is it?
That's the 45. It's in the press kit here.
No way. Oh
yeah.
my God. Wait,
Yeah.
but be careful touching that thing. It's like the Mona Lisa. I've heard of these things, but that you actually,
So
my God, please.
This is the very first 45.
Oh my God. And you took those.
Yeah.
Dude.
And when you look up closely, you can see my name in there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Photographs of Don Adkins, you know, or they say, you know, Donald Adkins Jr. or whatever, but yeah. So I'm sorry, yeah.
Oh my God. I bet you every band member doesn't have one in crew of those. That's incredible.
So I have this, you know, and there was things like, you know, here's original, Alan Kaufman's card, for example.
Oh, they're so huge what you're showing me. I feel like it's a fan book where like you go like we've recreated, but that's really the real deal.
Yeah. Believe me, I have a lot of people on social media that,
yeah,
you
I'm
know,
sure.
try to, you know, hey Don, can you sell this, and this, you know, and I'm starting to get offers for these press kits that are through the roof.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my
We were
gosh.
talking like, you know, $1,000 plus starting, you know. I'm like, wow.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
What do you remember? Did you snap any photos of the recording of Too Fast for Love? And where
Yes, I did.
Oh wow.
I was there for the first it was interesting because I went there when the day they were recording, and the whole night before, Tommy was in there with the engineer and setting up the drums. And those of you who've done music recording, probably the most thing you have to pay the best attention to is the actual miking of the drums. And so I think I remember something like 11 mics being used.
Someone said once that Tommy Lee's, they did it at A&M, and Tommy Lee's bass drum looks like a press conference.
Yeah. It was pretty big. And then, you know, there were things that, you know, from a geeky engineering standpoint, I thought was cool is like, you know, to get the big bass sound, because part of what they wanted in that first album was to have the cleanness and bigness of German type bands. And
like
Tommy
Accept.
Lee, yeah, Tommy Lee was always big on, I want my drums to sound like Accept. They really appreciated the Scorpions, you know, that clean metal sound. And so they spent a great deal of time setting up drums, including, I remember, a giant piece of plywood that was something like 6 foot by 6 foot that would have then a bass resonating mic on it. So you pick up that direct double bass kick coming into the plywood, resonating, hitting the mic, and giving you that big sound. Wow. And so I was there as they were finishing that setup. And then I was there as I stayed for them recording one song, which was Starry Eyes. That was the very first thing they recorded.
You saw them record Starry Eyes.
Yes. And then after that, I remember just they were, you know, hanging with the group between songs and everything. And that was Alan Kaufman was starting to get a little nervous and actually worried about wanting to keep this thing on a you know, on a drum beat, so to speak, from a time standpoint. I remember after that, he's like, okay, Don, I really need to focus on the group and get the guys through the session today. Like, you know, I'm going to dismiss all outsiders. And I'm like, okay, I understand. No problem. I said, look, Alan, I wanted to capture some history. He goes, thank you. He goes, this is a great history to capture. And that was it.
Did you capture some of that?
Yeah, so I captured, you know, the you know, we had, I think I have about 2 rolls of stuff at the studio during the recording of the album.
Oh my, and you got Nikki was talking about a possible book by you. You can see you're being everybody. It's funny because I saw that picture and had a dig for you, and now there's this explosion. I'm interviewing the authors for Nothing But a Good Time, the big book that was reviewed in the Wall Street Journal, and you're all over it. You've exploded. People know the gem that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you got to save that stuff for the book because it doesn't exist. It's so
Yeah,
weird because you don't want it on the internet. And this, I mean, I
right.
know you like sharing, but I don't want you to because I want to open a book and buy a book and just see it in there.
Well,
This,
you'll see, as I've explained to you in the past, I'm very cautious in what I share. One of the unfortunate realities, and it starts with the music industry itself, is that people think, oh, music is free.
yeah,
And just as you know, as a music artist, anything you put out there is stolen, and people don't want to pay for it anymore. And unfortunately, it's the same thing with photos. So yes, I do release typically 2 postings a day on Instagram of my images. I always do it at the lowest resolution. I put my watermark prominently on it, and so if you try to blow it up, it doesn't look as good as it does sitting on a cell phone. And so I protect myself, and I'm also ultra protective of my Motley Crue stuff because
yeah.
I do stock image sales for various media and everything, and I don't want to chip into that.
Can people buy prints though? Is there anything? Because I'll
Yes,
put links in the chat. So we'll put a link to your website in the chat. That's
sure,
the best way they can contact
sure.
you.
Yeah, that or via Instagram. Yeah,
Okay, I'll put links to that. And also, I've been to your place. You have such a cool place. You have like a whole music studio upstairs where you put on concerts. It's
yes.
amazing the love of music and art that goes down at your place.
We're very fortunate. Going back about 15 years ago, decided to build a dream studio. And so we had a 1-story house, went ahead and said, okay, let's just go up. And so we built a second story, built just one big ass room that's about 900 square feet, and has enough room to have 3 simultaneous backdrops going on for anything photographic. We've got an overhead rail system with lights on scissors and everything. And then a couple of years before that, actually, yeah, a couple of years before that, we had started hosting house concerts. And I went ahead and said, hey, let's go ahead and make this the ultimate house concert venue too. So we did pay the extra to have soundboard installed in the ceilings to avoid the barn effect. I have a full 14-channel PA in there, full lighting, and we put on, in non-COVID years, we put on 4 to 5 house concerts a year. And thanks to the meltdown of the music industry, I'm able to get a lot of the headliners from the Whiskey, Roxy, Troubadour, all playing our house.
That's awesome. And what's it? Do you have a Paso Robles wine? Is that your wine? What's up with the wine? I'm trying to understand it.
We live a third of the time in Paso Robles,
Okay.
which is one of the biggest wine area in
Oh
California,
yeah.
actually.
It's a
And
beautiful
we have a house
place.
up there that we've nicknamed Rock and Vine.
Oh
The
wow.
whole house is done in a rock theme, and
Uh-huh.
vine, of course, because of the wine. And so, we spend a lot of time up there, and we're strongly into wines and the wine culture up there. And also have a lot of our music friends come and stay with us up there.
Oh, that's cool. And your whole aspect, you did work at NASA too, because you have this mind. It's part rock and part engineer. That's probably why it all works. We all, it's what you bring in. And you worked at NASA for years.
I had post-war parents that really grilled it into my head about get a good job, get a good career, don't ever struggle. Because my parents
Right.
really kind of worked their way up and did okay, getting to eventually, nice suburbia middle class. But they're like, get a good education. No matter what you do, we'll support you in anything you want, but get a good education. And I was always a technical nerd. That kind of stuff came easy to me. So I did get an engineering degree, went to college for university for 6 years, and finished just as right in the midst of Motley Crue. Actually, I finished my engineering degree, and then early on with Motley Crue, I'd already started working in industry. So I spent 15 years at Hughes, working my way up from there to eventually running satellite subsystems, and then went over to the competitor down the street, TRW, where I had a full career there, being a program manager, spacecraft manager, architecting space systems, and all that kind of cool stuff, all while keeping a toehold in the world of rock.
Amazing. And I still see so many new pictures. That's just one era. Your era from great Alanis Morissette pictures,
Right.
great pictures. You're out all the time just enjoying music. It's not just that era because your pictures are so cool, man.
Yeah,
I
thank
love
you.
it.
And up until this pandemic hit, I was still out shooting 2 and 3 nights a week. Every Tuesday night here in Los Angeles, we have Ultimate Jam at the Whiskey, which is like a who's who of rock that show up. You can
Yeah.
catch, the Steve Lukather's, the Leif Garrett singing the Who,
Oh,
all these major acts coming in, the Anthraxes and stuff like that, and they all, just kind of pair up and play with each other for the night. There's a similar one on Monday night that's put on by the local NPR station that has emerging rock, where you can find, the Gary Clark Juniors and the Billie Eilish's playing before they made it and stuff like that. So yeah, I do enjoy it. And I'm also the staff photographer for the Rock Gods Hall of Fame, which recognizes the second tier music artists that support the major artists, as well as a lot of other stuff.
So cool, man. So cool. So final question. What's a picture you wish you took? What's an iconic album cover or something that you wish you took? What was a picture that inspired you or just really moves you?
I don't know if I can pin it down to one thing. There are things I wish I shot that I wish I would have had the wherewithal and the means to do something, Beatle-ish, but of course I'm too young for that.
Right.
So, when I see those images of the four young lads and everything, I wish if I had a time machine, I would go back and try to be in on the ground floor of that and try to be hanging around with Paul and Ringo and stuff like that. We had when I mentioned the house concerts, we hosted 3 years ago, we hosted Melanie here. And Melanie was one of the day one Woodstock rockers. She's most known for her, let's see, interesting song, Brand New Key. I've got a brand new pair of roller skates.
Oh, that's her. Whoa, yeah. You had her at your house.
Yeah, but she also had, other big hits like Lay Down, Lay It On Down and stuff like that. Really great artist. And after she played here, we had dinner because she'd rather eat after the show than before. And sitting around the table with her, and I asked her that night, I said, "Hey, you've probably had moments like this with like all four of the Beatles, right?" And she's like, "Well, no, I opened for them, but I did an art show with Yoko," and she was talking all about that. And we're continuing to eat. And I said, "Oh, Ed Sullivan show?" She goes, "Oh yeah." She's telling me all what it was like to play the Ed Sullivan show. And those moments to me are priceless. But, if I had a time machine, it would definitely be able to shoot some of the Beatles, or have the wherewithal to get the photo access to shoot, the one tour that George Harrison did, or some of the McCartney and Wings stuff and everything. I mean, even now with my photographic name, I have no trouble getting access for all arenas up to about the mid-sized level, the Greek Theater, places like that. No problem in a heartbeat. Nokia Theater, the places that hold 7,000-8,000 people. It's hard as hell to get mega tour type of access.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So here I am. I'm not able to usually get the Paul McCartney and Wings type of access. However, in the conversation in the last couple of weeks with Nikki, Nikki's invited me to come shoot his stadium tour with him, Def Leppard, and Poison.
So cool, man. Well, you helped put them there. You helped the images. I mean, you helped pull us out of the 70s into the 80s, man. You just pulled us out. That's what was so amazing about those photos in that time. It was the moving of a decade, man. And thank you so much, Don. Thank you for your time, man. And hang out so I can say goodbye to you. Say goodbye to everybody. All right.
Adios, everybody.